Welcome back, and joining me now is Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator Sanders, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Great to be with you.
It's great to have you here. Let's start off by talking about the decision of FBI Director Christopher Wray to announce his resignation 3 years before the end of his term. Do you think that that was the right decision, Senator?
Well, I'm a little bit nervous about it. You know, when Trump talks about sending to jail people who are on that January 6th committee, that sounds like being a tin pot dictator. So I would hope that we have an FBI and a Justice Department that protects the civil liberties of the American people and does its best to protect American democracy.
Well, we know the White House is considering potential preemptive pardons of those who've clashed with President-elect Trump. In light of what the president-elect said to me, that yes, he does think that members of the January 6th committee should go to jail, do you think that Mr. Biden should issue preemptive pardons for the entire January 6th committee?
Well, I think he might want to consider that very seriously. Look, that is an outrageous statement. This is what authoritarianism is all about. It's what dictatorship is all about. You do not arrest elected officials who disagree with you, who undertake an investigation. So all of us, and I would tell you, Kristen, I think there are a lot of Republicans. You just heard Lindsey Graham make that statement. I think that idea of Trump is not going to go very far. It is so quite outrageous.
It was notable to hear Senator Lindsey Graham say no point blank when I asked if they should go to jail. Let me ask you about President Biden's pardon of his son, Hunter. Former Biden senior advisor Anita Dunn said she agrees with the decision to pardon them. She disagrees with how it was carried out, the criticism of the Justice Department. And I want to remind you of what we heard from President Biden himself on this topic earlier this year. Take a look.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Senator, was it the right decision for the country to pardon Hunter Biden?
Well, I think two things. When you have his opponents going after his family, as a father, as a parent, I think we can all understand Biden trying to protect his son and his family. On the other hand, I think the precedent being set is kind of a dangerous one. It was a very wide open pardon, which could, under different circumstances, lead to problems in terms of future presidents.
Do you think he could hurt his legacy with this pardon, Senator?
Well, I think his legacy is a strong legacy. I think President Biden on domestic policies has been perhaps the most progressive president in American history since FDR. And I think the economy today, in many ways, is in very strong shape. But I do believe, as President Trump comes into office, we have got to understand, Kristen, and this is something I feel very strongly about, and it's not talked about enough. We are moving rapidly into an oligarchic form of society. Never before in American history have so few billionaires, so few people had so much wealth and so much power. Never before has there been so much concentration of ownership, sector after sector, power of Wall Street, and never before in American history, and we better talk about this, have the people on top had so much political power. We can't go around the world saying, oh, well, you know, in Russia, Putin has an oligarchy. Well, we got an oligarchy here, too. And in this last election, in both parties, billionaires spent huge amounts of money to elect their candidates. You know, here in the state of Vermont, we believe we have town meetings, one person, one vote. That's democracy, not billionaires buying elections. Those are the issues we got to focus on. We got to rebuild the middle class. 60% of our people live in paycheck to paycheck. We're the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. Many seniors are struggling, high rates of childhood poverty. So I look forward to working with President Trump. When he has ideas that are going to help the working class, we will vigorously oppose him if he wants to attack democracy or women's rights to control their own bodies.
And I want to ask you about one of the issues that you cited that you care deeply about. You obviously chair the Senate Health Committee. I want to get your reaction to the horrific shooting of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. Your colleague, Senator Elizabeth Warren, said this.
Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Senator Warren quickly clarified. She said, violence is never the answer, period. I should have been much clearer that there is never a justification for murder. My big picture question for you, though, Senator, is this the right time in the wake of this horrific murder to be talking about health care policy?
Look, Elizabeth Warren obviously understands killing and murder and shooting somebody in the back is totally unacceptable. But what I think has happened in the last few months is that what you have seen rising up is people's anger at a health insurance industry which denies people the health care that they desperately need while they make billions and billions of dollars in profit. So killing anybody, shooting somebody in the back who's the father of two is outrageous. It is unacceptable. Nobody should applaud it. I know Senator Warren did not. But I think what we need to ask ourselves when we talk about health care is why we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, why we have a life expectancy which is significantly lower than in other countries, why working class people die 5 to 10 years shorter than the people on top. So, Kristen, I feel very strongly about this. And I think the time is long overdue for us to guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child, especially at a time when we're spending twice as much per capita on health care as the people of every other nation. Goal of health care is not to make drug companies and insurance companies phenomenally rich. It's to guarantee quality care to all of our people.
Let me ask you about another topic, obviously very important to working class voters, the minimum wage. In my one-on-one interview with President-elect Trump, I asked him if he would consider raising the minimum wage. It's been at $7.25 since 2009. He acknowledged it is too low, Senator. He also said it's quite complicated to raise the federal minimum wage. But do you think you can work with President-elect Trump and try to get a deal on raising the minimum wage?
I surely hope so. It is. I tried, I think 2 years ago, to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We got zero. Not one Republican supported it. We ended up with 42 votes. Look, a $7.25 per hour minimum wage is an absolute disgrace. We have millions of people in this country who are working for starvation wages. They cannot afford housing. They cannot afford to adequately feed their kids. So, yes, we have got to raise the minimum wage. I would suggest to be $17 an hour. But I hope that we can work in a bipartisan way to finally accomplish that goal.
And, Senator, I have to ask you about this story that has captured the country's attention, these reports of purported drones flying over New Jersey, other parts of the East Coast. A Biden administration official said, quote, there's been a slight overreaction to these reports. I wonder, what do you make of the Biden administration's reaction so far? Are you satisfied by the administration's reaction?
I honestly don't know anything more about that than what I read in the papers. Sorry, can't give you great insight on that.
Are you concerned, though?
Am I concerned? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. What can I tell you? Yes, I'm concerned.
Very quickly, RFK Jr. is going to be on Capitol Hill this week. He's talked about food safety. I know that's something that you have said you are interested in. He's also a vaccine skeptic. Senator, where are you on RFK Jr. and his potential confirmation?
Well, I think I look forward to sitting down and talking with him. Obviously, vaccines, whether it's polio or COVID, have saved millions and millions of lives, and I strongly support vaccines. On the other hand, what I will tell you, and we had a hearing on this recently, is the food industry, through their processed foods, are helping to cause obesity in this country, cause diabetes in these countries. We have epidemics in our country in terms of diabetes and obesity. And I think we got to tell the food industry, stop making our kids overweight and causing all kinds of health problems.
Are you open to voting yes on RFK Jr., Senator?
The process, there is a process. I'm going to sit down. I'll talk to him. We're going to have a hearing on it. And it's premature to say how I will vote, or I think how anybody should vote, unless you hear from the nominees.
All right. So not ruling it out. We'll continue to stay in touch with you about that and all of these other topics. Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.